Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, a kickoff to Masters Week. No picks on today's show. Well, maybe we'll get in a few at the end. Who knows? But I want to talk about the state of golf, the just big, broad, macro topics that people are interested in right now. Because on Friday, I'm going to have the giant Masters Millionaire Maker preview show. On Monday, I'll have my bets and one and done picks with Jeff Feinberg. On Tuesday, we're going to re-up on the DraftKings. We're going to talk about ownership, update the picks, look at the weather, see if anything has changed over the course of the week. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to have the live chat for you, 1 p.m. Eastern Time next Wednesday, DraftKings YouTube channel. Check it out after the fact on the podcast feed, on the video feed. Then Friday, live Cut Sweat show with Jeff Feinberg back in studio. We have a whole week of everything coming out. I'll have my article up on dkplaybook.com. If you hit the description of this video right now, you will find the link to the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings rake-free DraftKings contest. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a lot of money to the winner. Going to be a huge payout, the biggest Pat Mayo Experience Open we've ever had. So you want to get into that. Let's fill it so it doesn't make me look like an idiot when I said, hey, we should have like 7,500 spots and like 3,000 of them fill. I think DraftKings might not pay me for like 3 years. So let's fill that. Put my neck out on the line for this, and it's going to be a great contest. It's actually the best one on DraftKings because there's no rake. All the money that is entered goes back to the people. But the big thing here is I got some giveaways for you. So this week on the Pat Mayo Experience, I'm going to announce the winners on next Tuesday's show when I re-up with the Gup and Colin Drew as we break down more of the DraftKings field. But here's what you can do. There's giveaways for a $555 entry into that giant contest, the $150 3 max entry, the $100 single entry, the $44, and then the big giant millionaire maker. I'm going to be giving away dozens of those tickets this week. And here's what you need to do in order to enter. For this episode, to get in, what you need to do is smash the like button, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and tell me which player on DraftKings below $7,000 do you think has the best reasonable chance of winning the Masters? Boom, you're in a draw for 20 DK bucks. Also, you can go to the podcast, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, leave a 5-star review, your DraftKings handle, and say something nice about the show. That's the currency that I deal with in. It's iTunes reviews. So you go up on there, boom, you're in a draw for the 20 DK bucks and the overall 550 as well. I'll have a pic up on Instagram, a nice Masters pic of myself. There, you follow me on Instagram, you leave your DraftKings handle and heart that picture, boom, you're in a draw too. So all these little ones add up. And again, if you have me on Facebook or on Twitter and you share the show, not a quote tweet, a retweet, and then you leave your DraftKings handle and the hashtag DK Masters underneath as a reply, you're in a draw again for the 20 DK bucks. You do all of these things, and then you're in the draw for the overall top prizes, the big money ones. So just do it as often as possible. You're in as often as possible. And hey, maybe you'll win twice. Maybe you'll win the $555 and a $20 entry. Who knows? I just want to give away tons of stuff to the people. Plus, there is a pinned tweet at the top of the Fantasy National Twitter page. You retweet that out into the world. And then again, tweet it back to me at FN Masters, Fantasy National Masters. Use that hashtag. You'll be in a draw for a year-long membership to Fantasy National. I'll try to give that away on Monday so you can get all your research in for the week. So now that that's out of the way, I'll probably re-up and talk about this a little bit more on the other shows, but I want to really get into it. And I couldn't think of anyone else better really to talk to about the stuff outside of golf, the culture of golf, how we consume golf, what golf is a lifestyle really. He is the host of the Golflandia podcast on Podcast One. He was the 74th male lead in Billy Madison, and really one of the nicest guys that is out there in the DFS golf community, or just the golf community in general. At Wiley77 on Twitter. It's Matt Wiley. Thanks for coming on, man.
That was a hell of an intro, Pat. I almost went to the bathroom.
It'd be better if I wrote it down instead of just trying to come up with it off the top of my head, to be perfectly honest with you.
Thanks for calling me nice.
You are
And
nice.
then me calling you a dick as soon as I see you on camera pre-recording.
See, that happens. Listen, I like to think of myself as a very neutral type person, and maybe you are as well in real life, but you come off as the world's nicest guy.
Well, I thank you, Pat. First of all, I want to say I love that shirt. It is Masters Week, and that shirt is fine fitting. The second part is You want to say something about your shirt?
I was just saying I had to get it tailored in as I was talking to you.
Did you really?
I did. It was just too wide, man. These American shirts are just way too big. Canadians just aren't that large.
I told you I'm going to go down there and specifically buy you and Jeff some gear.
That's amazing. Well, we will really appreciate that. Jeff especially will appreciate that.
I want to say, first of all, and I've said this before, and this is absolutely sincere, that there needs to be more credit given to you as an originator in this industry and someone who is different from a lot of people who have a platform in that you give lift to a lot of other people around you. And I think you've given birth to a lot of shows and other industries within this community because that's just who you are. And that's rare. You could have easily swatted a lot of people out of fear of competition, but you didn't. So a huge credit to you, Pat. And we're friends, and me and you and Jeff are friends. We don't make it as public as we probably should or could, but I tell you, Pat, a lot of credit goes to you.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I enjoy competition. And I think that when I started doing my show, I kind of luckboxed my way into doing this because people needed content. I was at Fantasy and I had already been doing golf. I was like, you know what? And I just happened to meet Feinberg. That's kind of how it all started, that he was sitting next to me in the office. We'd talk about golf. I was like, we should put this on camera. Let's start doing this. But I think people saw our show and thought, you know what? I could do that a lot better. It just sprung up all around the industry. And now like golf is, especially betting on golf, DraftKings golf, no matter what it is, it's a real industry now. And it wasn't in 2012 and 2013. It's really grown substantially.
Well, I will say my niceties are done now. Let's talk about your set, because I see your set all the time on your video interstitials.
And
I got to understand it better because it looks like something you found behind like a Nickelodeon dumpster or something.
The only stuff that I have is just stuff that I had from like child. Actually, someone sent me the wrestlers because I had lost all mine when I left Fantasy.
I understand, but it feels like what the basement will look like that I get murdered in.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you were actually in this room, that's exactly what it looks like. Like no doubt.
Okay.
Like if I look behind the walls, I'm pretty sure there's mold everywhere.
There, I got that out of the way. I've always wondered about it.
Hey, like,
and you know that everyone is scrutinizing every single square inch of your backdrop.
Hey, I try to put as much crap back there that people can like do a deep dive, like Zapruder film type rewind. I'm like, what's that? What's that over there? And there's major upgrades coming to the studio too. It's not going to like look any better, but like a new desk, new stuff for the walls. I got to get everything ready for football season. I mean, golf. I do football so I can fund the golf season, but football is really where the money's at.
That's where you are, man. I don't know how you sleep with a kid at night, man. You're the hardest working guy in sports.
Yeah, I mean, now that I have producer Paul Shaughnessy, he makes my life a lot easier than it was like 2 years ago when I actually didn't sleep. It actually did train me quite well to have the kid because I was sleeping like 2 hours a night.
Right. Well, I love you, Pat.
Well, I love you.
Let's carry on with the show.
I love you too, Matt. But you're going to the Masters. Like,
yes.
Is this your first trip to Augusta?
This is my first trip to Augusta. I have a Ray Floyd Jr. on every week for the show. It's becoming an annual thing. His content is fantastic. Back Nine blog, by the way, on .com or something to that effect. I should have come prepared with the web URL. Sorry, Ray. But he invited me down, and I couldn't be more excited. It's Tiger year. It's going to be packed. And, I've never been. I mean, I'm in Kentucky, so it's not vastly far away from me. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Paul Casey winning. We don't have to talk about picks, but there's your pick. There's my pick.
Yeah, you're all about it. Like, is it just like, hey, if you win Valspar, you're just locked in for life to win the Masters now?
I just got this feeling.
Spieth has won it. Reed's played well there. Maybe it is like just a course to look at.
I don't know. I just got this aura. You know how you get that? How you just get dialed in?
Yeah, I do that all the time, and then I lose all my money betting on that guy.
It's from, it's just, and I use a stat, strokes gained golf shots from hardos.org. Use that before?
I try. I have my own metrics that I come up with that are just as nonsensical. They also don't work.
Oh, good. All right.
So I wanted to kind of cover a broad range of things here, because one of the things that I really like about your show is that you guys give out picks. You and Baroff talk about the European tour, even on far more larger scale than I do, but it's the stuff around it, whether it's the branding stuff and the interacting with the people, like all the empathy that I lack, you seem to have. So it's kind of a weird mix here as we go through this. But the one big question I wanted to ask you is, where do you think the state of golf is right now? Do you think it's in a good place or not?
A good place in what way, Pat?
Like, as opposed to 3 years ago, obviously the audience is a bit bigger, but let's say we just remove Tiger tomorrow. Like, we had all this comeback with Tiger. There's so much fervor for Tiger. If we just take him out of the equation, like, what's golf look like? Do people care still?
Well, I think that, and I put this stat and I talked about on the podcast for Golf Channel ratings for viewers. And people always attribute, I mean, since 2010, golf viewership on the Golf Channel has gone up, I think, 50% year on year, meaning it's 50% higher each year than it was in 2010. And if you correlate that to the number of tournaments that Tiger played, I don't have the notes in front of me. Again, I should. Between 14, 15, and 16, there was no Tiger bump, right? So something is lifting the industry that isn't Tiger related. And largely, I think it's, the community of golf fans that aren't necessarily players, but the DFS community, this group. And I think fantasy and gambling has given it a huge lift. So in that regard, for audience and eyeballs, I think it's in a fantastic state. I think it's an even better state long-term than perhaps the NFL.
I mean, is that solely just because the NFL might eventually go away when people realize how unsafe it is?
Well, I mean, I don't want to talk NFL because I'll get killed. I just think that what golf has that NFL doesn't is that you reset your emotions week to week in golf, right? You don't have to follow a team. You can follow a 150-player field. I'm near Cincinnati, right? The season's already over. Why would I watch? They came out with a hat today for the Bengals for the draft day that looks like a piece of bacon. I mean, it's the most ridiculous franchise in sports. So why would, even with fantasy? Now, fantasy, sure, I can follow along on NFL fantasy and get engaged in the sport. But following teams is going to be the real crisis, I think. Following teams and actually going to the experience of an NFL game, as it traditionally is problematic. Golf doesn't seem to have that problem. You follow so many storylines. You have so many players every week that you can follow, from the top tier ranked to, guys who are just making it on tour. We know all of them. We know all of them on the PGA Tour. We know all of them on the Euro Tour. And I think it's a model that really has longevity. Plus, I'm not going to go out and play running back tomorrow with my kids, right? But I will play golf. And the interesting thing about those ratings, and what I think that the networks are figuring out, because certainly the manufacturers are, that ratings are going up and viewerships are going up, but less and less people are playing golf. Notice how there's less and less TaylorMade hats out there. You've got a lot of guys and players whom I've spoken with who don't have hat sponsorship or bag sponsorship anymore. TaylorMade decided to not spend money on a booth at the golf show in Orlando, yet viewership's going up. So I think that golf's in a good space. Now it's a race for the platforms, the media, and how to adjust to the viewership like us to catch up.
That's going to be somewhat problematic. And whether if it's just logistics in general, it just seems like the PGA Tour has problems adapting to where we are now. They're taking little mini steps, but I kind of equate it to like the way that golf is perceived, at least by the people who run golf, is very much like how the NHL is perceived in Canada by like the higher ups. Like, hockey's king. Like, well, what else can we do to hockey? Hockey's fantastic. And they don't necessarily push it forward. They don't seem to be too concerned about growing the game. Like, you're in Kentucky. How much hockey do you ever see? None?
None.
So
none. I am the only subscriber to the NHL package in Kentucky.
And that's just for your Leafs games?
Yeah, but I don't even mean I'm getting less and less attached to it too. It just culturally, when you're not, immersed in it all the time, it's sad. Even with the Leafs, when I grew up, I went to 700 junior hockey games. It's crazy, and now I don't even follow it anymore. And that's the thing with the NHL. The thing about the NHL, the advantage that they have is that it's so cultural in Canada, right? You really have no other competition. Plus, it's the seasons. The seasons dictate that really it's the sport that you're going to play and watch the most. You can't golf 12 months a year. You probably can in Kentucky and south of here. So I think that's what the NHL has that the PGA doesn't have. Plus, the PGA has got a lot of other sports to compete with, right? Now, they don't have other tours to compete with, but they have other sports and eyeballs to share.
I guess the thing that I was trying to get to is that in Canada, where the NHL is king, there's no reason to try anything new or push the envelope forward, and it makes you somewhat complacent. And I feel like that's where the PGA has been at for a while, especially things like the Golf Channel. Like if there was a PGA Tour channel and a Golf Channel, then we would start seeing the competition. Like you mentioned off the hop, like I've had people in here who have, you technically have a competing show with me. A lot of people have competing shows with me. And I think that competition is good for the overall product. I know my show has gotten better over the last 3 years. Your show has gotten better. Everyone that comes on each and every time, people are competing for clicks and listens and everything like that it's going to push people forward to get better. That's where the competition aspect comes in. And maybe if golf saw itself, like you mentioned, in the gambling world or in the fantasy world, that there's a part of competition. We need to take this part of the market share, and then we can start pushing our content towards that, because that's a big advantage that football has is they figured this out like 10 years ago. And like people do follow their teams, but so much of football viewing and interest in football is tied up in fantasy and gambling. And it seemed like they figured that out a decade before every other sport.
I think that tradition has always been a big part of golf, and that the model that's operating it right now, the platforms, the media, is still about 20 to 30 years old in terms of how they operate, how they cover live television, how they do their weekly show content. They believe that the viewers want to see the lead group, tee off, and that's it, and Tiger, and a lot of people talking about it. I think that you're right. I think that when and I've talked about this a lot, when an industry has a monopoly on their sport or their activity or their product, there's not a lot of incentive to be good. And I think that you can get really stuck in your ways and then believe you're doing a great job because, where else are people going to go? Where's the money going to go? Where are the viewers going to go? Nowhere. They can literally put out anything. And there's only one spot to watch, the best golfers in the world. That's the PGA Tour. You look at, like, as an example, New York restaurants, right? Why are they the best? Because they have 50,000 of them. You cannot be a restaurant in that area and not be good. You can be really cheap, but if you want to have, make money, you've got to be really good. And then, I don't want to get controversial here, Pat, but Tim Hortons in Canada, it sucks. I'm Canadian.
It's garbage. I don't think the only time that I'm forced to go to a Tim Hortons is at like an airport, where that is literally the only coffee shop that is around. Everywhere else is better. McDonald's in Canada actually bought the old Tim Hortons recipe like 10 years ago. McDonald's coffee is better than Tim Hortons coffee now.
But that's the thing. They've blocked out the marketplace, and it's really tough to enter. And so does Tim Hortons have to be good? No, they just have to be there, right? And make money. I think that what will change, though, is, like you said, unless someone embraces what it is that I think is lifting viewership on tour, and I've said what I think it is, and I'm pretty confident that we're right, that the fantasy players, the gamblers, the people who will watch 4 days of Corrales or the Sanderson, that wouldn't happen 20 years ago. You wouldn't know guys like, I don't know, give me an example, Brandon Harkins, Alex Chayka. And we know everything about them. And so it's going to be a matter of following the money, because there's networks popping up. You have Golf TV, right? Discovery Channel put a ton of money into Golf TV. you have networks popping up, understanding that there are new economies, new ecosystems, new viewers that they can grab money and market share from. And it's all about following that money. And I think the people who first embrace that, who are first movers to that audience, are going to set things forward in a competitive environment. I think that it's only a matter of time before what we talk about, you and me, and other people in this industry, is part of live broadcasts and part of network content. I think it cannot be ignored anymore. I understand the PGA's tour's reluctance with gambling. I mean, you have high accessibility to players at tournaments. Some of them, like, I'm not saying PGA tours players are corruptible, but if you look at tennis, for instance, the scandals behind low-level tennis and how gambling infiltrated that environment. Not saying it will happen to the PGA, but it's easy and more readily available for gambling and gamblers, etc., to infiltrate a tour like the PGA when it's an individual sport. Think about matchups, right? Than it is in others. So I think that's been their reluctance. I think the PGA is protecting their players. I think what we have to do as a community is make sure that we don't create resistance with the players, because ultimately they have the heavy hand, right? If they say we want nothing to do with daily fantasy, period, I mean, what happens, right? If there's too many people yelling drunk at tournaments, if there's too many people trying to throw them off, not that they would, but if Kevin Kisner's comments, remember his comments recently?
That he doesn't give a crap about I believe it was, he doesn't give a crap about your daily fantasy team, and that if Jason Day had shot 4 under rather than withdrawing, no one really would have cared.
Right. He used stronger language than that. By the way, can I swear?
You can swear all the fuck you want.
Okay. But he said, I don't give a shit about the DFS community. Now, did he say that off the cuff? Probably not. No, Steele and I think was Walker had a little more carefully rehearsed comments, but it gives you a window of insight as to where the resistance might lie. Okay. So what there needs to be a bigger bridge between all the parties within this amazing world of golf. And I think it will happen. It'll happen starting right here today.
Yeah, well,
on the Pat Mayo show.
Let's hope so. So if we were to reprogram Golf Channel, because a lot of it is talking heads, and I don't have a problem with talking heads, although when the ability to show live golf is available and you're the Golf Channel and you're not doing that, and I don't know if it's a rights deal with the PGA or what the reasoning is that I have to watch one group on Golf TV or on your NBC Gold, whatever it may be, in the morning when I know the full field is out there and I know all the cameras are out there, why that's a thing. But even their in-studio programming could be so much more dynamic and really push people to actually care about this stuff that it really makes no sense to me. Farady's awesome. More stuff that's fun like that about golf. I know that's not predictive or anything like that, but those interviews are awesome. I like watching them, and they just can't grasp that. But maybe he is such a personality that he drives that show and he makes me want to watch it. But if I see Brandel Chambly in the morning talking for 3 hours with Jeff Shackelford, I just don't give a shit.
Well, and it's just where sports media has been for a long time, right? These outlets like ESPN, for instance, have just had a monopoly on distribution. So where else are you going to get content? You're going to have, if someone's lucky, like a Colin Cowherd enough to get a show, then he's going to be instantly famous and make a lot of money. And that is going to be the source for dynamic commentary that you're only going to be able to get in the past. And I think they're just operating under that model. I mean, a lot of these people that are making these decisions are very much higher ups within a network, and they'll get a big check from a sponsor, and they'll say create a show. And oftentimes they'll just do something safe, right? They're not going to take a lot of chances with sponsorship money, and they know that they've got safe, digestible content producers and hosts at the network, and they'll just use that. Again, it all comes back to there is no incentive to be innovative until now. Because now you've got a lot of people in this community creating their own content, right? We're essentially our own network. And if we're not going to get what we want from the networks, on their daily content. I mean, we can't get live golf anywhere else unless we go. So we're always going to have to consume that. But the other programming, if it doesn't hit the mark with us, or it feels inauthentic, or if we feel, which I think is the biggest rub for people, if we feel that a lot of these hosts know less than us, and I think it's why that Stephen A. Smith, when he had that San Diego Charger tight end comment, you sort of peek behind the veil, that these guys don't maybe know more than us. And it's an affront to a lot of the viewers because we do, right? We put a lot of time into this. I mean, it's not high revenue churning. We're not the ones making the money, but we are lifting the game, whether we intend to or not. We are the ones helping, bring a new audience to it for both the fantasy field and live golf. So where's our credit, Pat?
I mean, it'd be nice. It'd be nice if we got some credit in the form of like someone writing a check to us. But with the Stephen A. Smith thing, it's funny. I feel kind of bad for Stephen A. Smith because I get why mistakes like this happen. The fact that he is so informed, even to the degree that he is across whatever it might be, is somewhat stunning considering the guy does like 7 hours of content live a day. Like, there's just no way that he could possibly keep up on it. Like, like with the Chargers thing where he had the guy, he clearly got whoever did his notes for that day or whatever assistant handed him a sheet from last year. That's exactly what happened. And he studied the sheet. He committed that to memory, went on, and he had 3 minutes in order to come up with a take. It's like, hey, Steven, you're back on for another hour. Like, where would he get the time to actually research this stuff?
Yeah, whose issue is that then? It's the network's issue, right?
Yeah, it is. But he has to be the scapegoat for all of that because he's the face of it. But right. I get where that mistake comes from.
Right, but the network thinks, okay, we'll have this one vessel that everyone likes, and it's really controversial. And with Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. I mean, it's all orchestrated, right? It's all choreographed.
It is. Like and when Stephen A. fucks up like that, it actually turns out better for Stephen A. and ESPN because people just engage with it.
Of course. So I think the difference is that there's a lot of contributors to golf and in sports in general. I mean, I don't follow the NFL, but I know there's a lot of guys in the NFL Twitter space who know a lot of shit. I mean, it's incredible. And I think eventually a lot of these guys, if they're not already, need to have some sort of recognition, some sort of acknowledgement, and some sort of platform. And then they bring in the eyeballs from the community as well. I think that's the future.
I think you're right. The problem is, and I see a lot of people point to this, like there's a lot of really smart golf people out there. There's a lot of really smart baseball people and a lot of really smart football people. And this kind of happened in baseball when sabermetrics kind of took over about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever it may be. And we saw people writing these really in-depth think pieces and were really, really smart. The problem became, how do you articulate that to people who don't know what you're talking about? And where these people were not seasoned broadcasters or even seasoned communicators. They were people running numbers. They were, I'm in a basement right now. They're the same people who were in the basement 10 years ago that were trying to get this information out. And it just doesn't cross over properly. So you need some sort of vessel to be able to do that. Like, I always thought that Jonah Carey did a really good job in baseball, taking a sabermetric background, but translating it for the viewers and the older audience to make them understand. Here's what you need to know. It's not the most complicated thing in the world. You don't need to know the math that goes behind calculating war in baseball, but here's what war means. Here's what it is telling you. I think that there needs to be more of that because it doesn't matter what sport it is, that people are talking in these little tiny echo chambers. Like even in golf, when people tell me like, oh, well, when I ran the R2 compared to whatever it was, like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I follow this stuff.
But Pat, it's not like there is a competition between, taking the risk on doing something like that, because there are a lot of guys who are quants and like data who are actually pretty good on camera, versus having an athlete out there doing content. Have you seen, the Bryson ad?
I'm on the other side of this. I think they've made it so that people are I think that as a branding strategy, I think that they want people to mock it.
Pat, just this morning, and this went hashtag viral. I'm pulling it up. Did you see my tweet about being from the heart?
I did not.
All right. So an agent or someone sent out a Twitter message to all of their players to tweet out about the women's amateur,
Oh, I see it now.
right? And they all said the same thing. Not only did they say the same thing, they each had the grammatical error in it that was copied and pasted to them. So, like, if you want to talk about quality of content and taking this is the inauthentic stuff is the worst thing in 2019 branding and marketing. People are too woke, we're too aware, we're too high of observationalists of, that's not a word, of content. And we know when we're being gimmicked, and we are gimmick repulsed completely. And so when you have something like that, when players are saying, you know, congrats, blah, 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 or good luck to all the women, hashtag double space at, you know, ANWA golf, it not only doesn't mean anything, it means less, that the player doesn't even care, right? So I think people are way more aware of golf data by day, and I think there's an opportunity to start spitting it out there. Now, on the level of some of the higher end people who do this stuff, like Nelson Adcock, no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, he's you know, a data file. There's a lot of stuff that people wouldn't understand that he does. But I think I know that's not disparaging Nelson Adcock. His stuff's great. Cut Sweats, by the way, free press. No, but I think there is a way for a lot of these people in the community, both in all sports, to get out there. There you go.
Yeah, well, if we're going to divvy it all up, I mean, all these different niche markets, but even as it pertains to that sort of tweet, like, who is that tweet for, I guess, is the bigger question. Because
I'll tell you what it's for, Pat.
I mean, you deal more with branding and marketing and understand this stuff, but, like, to me, I would think that this is for not us. This is for, like, random people. Like, if my dad is scrolling the internet, he might see this. And he's not really online at all. But if he sees this, he might, hey, I don't know what this was. Now I see it. It raised that amount of awareness. But if you're online all the time, like you mentioned, it just seems horribly disingenuous.
It's about image building, much like it is gratuitous brand placement. Excuse me. Sorry, just had a sip of coffee. But that's what it is, honestly, right? It's just make sure that the players that we represent say something nice about the women's amateur so that people think they are A, B, and C. And it doesn't mean they're not good guys or care about it, but now it makes it a million times worse. It's about image building. It's about making your player look good, making your player look marketable, making your player say the right things and the nice things. So what? So they get new dollars, right? And I think in the history of golf for branding and players, it's been pretty easy. But I spoke with one player who is, I'm not going to name his name, but he's upset with his agent because he's not being creative enough in terms of how to market him in this day and age. He's losing, equipment sponsorships. And he's like, well, it's not about sending a deck out anymore to potential brands and saying, hey, circle this spot on my hat or circle this spot on my bag. Advertise here. They need to do more. But I think that, mind blow, what I think that is that this industry with players, the DFS gaming industry, we're giving more presence and helping players who did anyone know the top 50 ranked or the 80th ranked golfer in 1988? No. But now we know all of them. And this sport and us, we give all kinds of personalities some life because, we're interested in them. Now, it's not, there is obviously some incentive on our end because, when you play $6,400, Lucas Bjerregaard at the Masters, we want to talk about him. Probably shouldn't do that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm with you. We're not going to be playing. We're not going to be playing the Beer Garden. Hopefully, he goes out and comes like second at Valero, and then all of a sudden, everyone just wants to play him because he's definitely going to win the Masters. But
look at Beef, right?
Yeah,
look at Beef.
Beef is a good example. Eddie Pepperell is a really good example. But this can go so.
Eddie's a genius.
But this can go so horribly wrong at the same time. Look at like Grayson Murray.
Well, because he's shown you who he is, right?
But people didn't want to. But people didn't want to see that. So, is it worth?
Some people can't hide it. I credit it. At least he's being authentic, right? And if he changes and he sort of tempers his comments in the future, which I think he has. He's blocked me on Twitter. Shocker. But if he's able to adapt and change and grow, I think that makes him more human. Whoa, time out. Wow, being more human and authentic. How crazy is that? I think that's okay. Like did the Kuchar Sergio golf cart debacle convince anyone? Was that good PR? Did that make them look any more normal? It made them look insane. Just say, hey, yeah, we fucked up. Sorry, I really wanted to win.
Well, this is one of the big things as it pertains to that one with the Kuchar Sergio thing, because you have Kuchar, who's on this like swing of becoming like one of the most unlikable people on tour, and then Sergio, who's just generally one of the most unlikable people on tour, just by public perception.
Why is it? Why is Kuchar unlikable? Because
he stiffed a caddy. That's why.
Because it makes him look like it's not even that part. It's the way he handled the messaging afterwards. It makes him look like a liar and a piece of shit. And maybe he's not, but it's just like they try too hard to carefully choreograph images in all sports. And it makes it, in this day of awokenness with people who follow sports and the people in our feeds, Pat, they just don't buy it anymore.
Well,
that's it.
I think you just hit on one of the key things. It's the people in our feeds. But has golf branched out far enough where the people in our feeds are actually the consumers of a lot of these things? Or is golf still, although the younger demographic is definitely growing, but are those people more concerned about the gambling aspect and the DraftKings aspect? And they're just detached. They just want to see how the people do. That's it. Where the older people, whether you're 45 plus, 50 plus, the real true consumers of golf, as it's always been known, the older demographic, do they still want to see this sort of stuff and not the individualistic nature? And they want to see Sergio and Kuchar get along in a golf cart, as forced as it may seem after all, rather than having them be like rivals, which would be awesome, and pair them together at some sort of tournament, which I would want to see that on my PGA Live. I would tune in to watch that. Is that just us in a bubble looking at it from online?
Yeah, well, I think that the smart brands that understand that the people in this community who may not buy tailor-made R7 irons and go out and play at their country club every week. I don't know why I put that in quotes. But I think we do consume things, right? Look at Psycho Bunny. Hey, there you go. I mean, I wear these shirts. So there's an opportunity. I think that different brands just have an opportunity to enter this marketplace with the style of consumer that is now there. It's I mean, there are still some, and they still will always exist, but it used to be a sport largely of exclusivity. I mean, you couldn't just go out and play golf necessarily. It was an expensive sport to join. It's an expensive sport to play. And now it's really open season for everyone, both for DFS and Topgolf, right? Anyone can play. So I think that some of the brands that maybe have not been in the space before, the non-Titleists, the non-TaylorMades, the non-Strixons, the non-equipment, which will still have a place, Morgan Stanley. By the way, did you know that Justin Rose is Morgan Stanley?
I did. I heard that it's almost like what Hulu was doing with all the NBA players by getting them to change their nicknames or getting tattoos on them. He's just Morgan Stanley. He's no longer Justin Rose. Legally changed his name. Right.
And I think that Justin Rose is a very marketable person. I
don't. Like, I mean,
really?
I can't really tell you anything about Justin Rose.
I think he's very safe, and he's good on camera, and he's bright. I think he's overexposed right now.
But this is the first time I feel like he's made so much money in his career, but this is the first time it seems like from a marketability standpoint that he's really had a chance to cash in. Like there's the different points of Justin Rose. Like Justin Rose broke onto the scene in the British Open as an am in like the late 90s, and he was going to be the next best thing. And then there's something about his style of consistency that just isn't appealing to people. Like he doesn't like he's one of the favorites at the Masters, yet no one's going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Justin Rose. He's not fun.
Well, I think that in the twilight of their careers, I'm not saying Justin Rose is there yet, but I mean, he's 40-ish. And I think that they're trying to lock up long-term, branding deals really when they're peaking like this, make some money to bank, make some generational money for their families. I mean, he plays Hanma now, right?
Yeah.
He could play, Spalding Golden Bears. It doesn't make a difference for him. He's one of the world's best golfers. But Hanma locked him up, and they gave him a good deal with money. So there he's a Hanma guy. But that's what I think a lot of these guys are doing, and I think that brands which, listen, if you're in if you're holding one of these gigantic brands and you are the gatekeeper for the label, you're not going to stick your neck out for people who are going to have, potentially put your brand at risk. So they go safe, like a Justin Rose. He's smart. He's been around the block, and they know it's a good lift for their product. But the problem is that the space, and that was okay 10 or 20 years ago, but the space is changing now. And now we want authentic people. We want people we can relate to, who we believe when they say, man, I am Morgan Stanley. Honestly, if Grayson Murray said, I am Morgan Stanley, I'd be like, I may have to give Morgan Stanley a look, right? Because if Morgan Stanley says I like Grayson Murray, vice versa, I'm like, well, he's probably fucking right.
If we go under the impression...
Can you imagine that?
There would be no way that would ever happen. That's just not happening.
Wait a second. I think I just gave Morgan Stanley a $10 million idea.
You save it for yourself then.
Bro, fuck it. Everyone always copies. Listen, we know how things go in this industry, but I'm going to give this one out for free. Morgan Stanley, at the end of those ads, should have every player who's controversial, and Grayson Murray should lead it off and say, I am Morgan Stanley. You would get 40 zillion views of that.
Well,
God. Why don't I just give that away to Ad Agency X New York?
If all these major brands are going to go after the safer players, almost like how Tiger got every single thing when Tiger was known as like the greatest guy in the world, then all of a sudden Tiger wasn't the greatest guy in the world, but he still had the name cachet that went along with it. So all these brands are coming back. And do you feel like his smiling on the course, his engagement with other people, even the thing that he did with Kevin Na at the Players where it looked like it was kind of fun, do you think this is deliberate from Tiger just to make it seem like he's a good guy all of a sudden?
No, I don't have any insight to this. I have some insight to this. I honestly believe that he is enjoying his spot as an ambassador and as a legacy player in golf. I really believe he's soaking it all in. He's led a life. He's led 100 lives, right? Than all of us could ever dream of experiencing. And I think he literally is just seeing, he's just looking at things differently, and he's enjoying his time. You saw him engaging with Kevin Na. You see him laughing at the fans. Plus, I think he's realized that, because he had some comments before, I think the Players, which were shed a little light on this. I think that he understands now the full limitations of his health and his body. And he said, I can't do this forever. I'm enjoying it like I am now. I think he understands that the top tier golfers in the world, to compete week to week, to be world number one again, it takes a physicality that he no longer can have by science, right? And I think that killer mentality, when he knows, man, he didn't beat Lucas Bjerregaard in match play for the strangest ending in history for Tiger. So I think he's come to that conclusion that, whereas he's still going to be, he's not going to be terrible. He's going to be top 10. He's going to win some tournaments. But I think he acknowledges that I'm just going to enjoy what I can do at this time with the shape I'm in and be a good ambassador for golf. I think he's just in a different spot in his head in life. He's been through everything, right?
Yeah, it seems genuine when you're out there, but it also seemed genuine 20 years ago with Tiger Woods, and that wasn't the life that he was leading. So it could be an act. He seems to be a pretty good actor. But I never
saw him laughing with Kevin Na, guys like Kevin Na 20 years ago in the heat of the Players Championship. I never saw him laughing and smiling and taking in a kid hitting balls in his backyard at the match play. Now, I don't have all the content to back that up, but I do think it's a different Tiger. He's got kids. He's got a family. He's been through literally everything. And I think he just acknowledges where he is in the sport. Look at those interviews he's doing with Golf TV to bring back Golf TV.
You love Golf TV. Let's get a show on Golf TV.
Okay. Yeah,
Done.
Let's do that.
Done. We're in.
No, but I just think that if networks don't realize what, their emergence into this industry with a ton of money and time, they should. But he's doing these really good interviews with that interviewer from there. And have you seen them? It really feels like she's broken him a little bit. I've never seen a more authentic Tiger in my life.
So if that's the case, and we're going to have, just back to the branding thing, where Morgan Stanley is going to go with Justin Rose. Justin Rose isn't going to say anything fucking stupid. He's going to be Justin Rose. It's a very safe investment. Does that allow smaller brands that want to enter the market the ability to go after, not necessarily more controversial figures, but guys that are out there? Like, I can't imagine, like, I love John Rahm. I really do love him. And he has high-end sponsorships with everyone. But I would bet that a very, very high-end, big time firm, a legacy firm, a safety firm, or whatever the product might be, might hesitate to go in with John Rahm because he has like meltdowns on the course, which I think actually makes him far more endearing. He seems like more of a real person that way. But does that mean that there's like second tier brands or even lower tier brands that want to break into the space that can make John Rahm their guy? Like, if I was Morgan Stanley and I wanted to invest, why would I give all this money to Justin Rose when Tommy Fleetwood is younger, probably going to be better for the next 10 years, and seems like he actually has a whole bit of personality? That just might be his haircut. I don't know, but he seems like a good guy.
It's up to the company. I mean, Morgan Stanley is probably a bad example because they're 300 years old.
Yeah.
They basically came over here on the Mayflower. I mean, but if I was sponsoring Peters or Hatton, I'd be Club Repair or Xanax? I don't know. I mean, there's an idea. I mean, there are opportunities to fit the personalities of these players. I mean, John Rahm's just getting mad. I mean, okay, it makes him look authentic.
Who doesn't get mad on the golf course?
He's not like a white supremacist out there yelling crazy things. He's just getting mad. I mean, that's why I like Peters or Hatton or Rahm. I mean, I like Kisner. He just kind of says things that are different, that are less choreographed. If Kevin Kisner or someone said, I really like this sponsor, I'm probably going to be more apt to believe him. It's not a golf problem. It's not a player problem. It's a brand understanding that there are different personalities on this tour than just the Fowlers, Roses, Spieths, who are bankable and safe. I mean, look at Josh Teeter, a friend of mine from Kentucky. He's wearing a different hat every week of a brand that he likes. I mean, whether they pay him or not, he's wearing, hats from restaurants around this area in Lexington. Just because. There's an idea. Sponsor someone's hat every week for a player. I mean, I remember Ben
Curtis used to be sponsored by the NFL, and he would wear like the whatever city they were in or like region that they were in. If they was in like Milwaukee, or if it was in Wisconsin, that he would wear like a Green Bay Packers hat that week.
Right.
I thought that was it was effective enough that I remember it 10 years later.
I got a back alignment machine as a new sponsor for the podcast called Teeter. You probably never heard of them.
I could use it because I have a terrible back.
Right. And I'm thinking the name is Teeter. It's for back alignment for people in sports, probably. Hello, let's connect it. Wouldn't Josh Teeter be the perfect example and sponsor for this? Yes. Unless it's a sex machine. I haven't figured that out yet.
Hey, I mean, in the vein of being authentic, you should probably use it at least once to figure out what it is.
It's interesting.
You talked to some of these players about this stuff, like Josh Teeter, and I know you know a few others. Like, you don't need to name names or anything like that, but like, do players have concerns about any of this stuff? Do they care about any of this stuff? Like, what's really there besides getting more money and getting more sponsorships? What are their concerns, do you think?
I think their concerns are just that. I mean, I think that it's been bankable money for them historically, that it will cover their travel expenses, their caddies travel, and just their tournament schedule for the year. If they had $250,000 that they got, recurring every year, they could bank on that. And then they could go to these tournaments and not sweat, operating cash, because it's expensive. I mean, it's expensive to be a pro golfer that doesn't make a ton of money, right? I mean, you are paying your caddy, you're paying your flight, you're paying your family, you're paying your hotel, you're paying your time. And I think if I'm a golfer who's not making every cut every week, that's a concern. So what is the opportunity for them? Well, if they have a personality and character, that's ultimately what brands, that's like Beef. Is Beef a top-rated world talent? No, he's not even on the PGA Tour. He doesn't even do extremely well on the Euro Tour. He makes a ton of dough from Arby's. Why? Because people like to look at him and his personality. And you would think he would be a guy who eats a lot of roast beef. Not from his size, but just because he looks like, that guy, right? And I think there's a lot more opportunity for some of these players with a personality, with an identity, who have something beyond, being the world top 5 that, we can help as a community bring to them that would get sponsors like a Beef. Oh, his name's Beef too. Do you get that? That would get more money for people like that in general. Like a Teeter for Teeter.
Teeter for
Like
Teeter.
a Mayo for you. Why aren't you sponsored by Miracle Whip or Hellman's? Like, it's insane to me, Pat.
Don't like Mayo. I'm the only Mayo that counts around
You
here.
fucked it up.
Yeah, I'm the only Mayo that counts around here. But like Rory is starting his like own content stream now, whether it's podcasts. I could see players going more in that direction, and then they start monopolizing all this sponsor money for themselves.
That's the issue we originally talked about, though. It doesn't, being a podcaster or being in media or being a talent, the transition from athlete to that is an entirely different space, right? I'm not going to go out and say I'm going to play point guard for the Knicks because I can't, right? So it doesn't. Now, can they get an audience? Yes. But ultimately, can they create that content that people want to see? Brooks Koepka, DJ are not the most interested in being on camera at all, right?
Well, Brooks is only when no one is paying attention to him.
Yeah. But that's so if they start getting their own podcasts, etc., is it something that community people want to listen to? I don't know. Possibly. I mean, they can get, there's a lot of bad podcasts out there, Pat.
No, I don't believe that for a second.
Right, but a lot of famous people just do them, and they ultimately get an audience because that. But is it something that is sustainable? Because essentially, you become a writer. Are you a writer? I mean, that's a big part of what makes a good show. So there you go.
So you have a hand in you've been around the Barbasol a lot, because that's in Lexington, right?
It's just south of Lexington in a place called Nicholasville, but Lexington proper, yes.
So what do you see about it's an alternate event? It's is it opposite Bridgestone or British Open?
It's opposite the British Open.
So you're getting a second tier field that comes there. Obviously, the very high end players are going to be over in the UK playing in the British Open. It really seems to me like these alternate events are a really good opportunity to lean into something almost like the European Tour has done. Now, they have a lot of gimmicky events. I'm not saying make the Barbasol a gimmick event, but have it be somewhat different, somewhat appealing. And maybe that draws new sponsorships. Besides Barbasol, instead of using Stableford Scoring, for example, why couldn't you bring DraftKings on as a sponsor, and that tournament is played by DraftKings Scoring? And it's the Barbasol with DraftKings Scoring, then all of a sudden you have two sponsors.
Pat, it's really interesting that you raised that, because I think that, I'm not saying specifically DraftKings, but I know the tour organizer here. We've met. We're working together for the Barbasol in different ways. I think that they are now that the PGA Tour has at least opened the door to gambling and fantasy. I think that tour organizers realizing that they are on the hook for the check, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's not the PGA saying, "Here's a bunch of money, go set up a tournament. If you lose it, we'll cover it." No, they're saying you underwrite the risk. We'll bring the table sponsor like a Barbasol, and we'll bring television. But other than that, you got to sell tickets. You got to get entertainment. You got to sell local sponsorship. You got to sell beer, etc. So these guys not wanting to lose, what's the cut? I mean, what's the risk for a lower tier tournament? 5 million, 6 million? They're the ones paying the purse, right? They've also got to pay television. They've got to pay for all the setup. They got to pay for the course. They got to pay all this stuff. So are they looking for more creative ways to get money into a venue? Yeah. Entertainers. The unfortunate thing with the Barbasol in July in Kentucky is that the weather is going to be absolutely madness. And we unfortunately had that problem last year. But they are 100%, these organizers, being innovative and thinking, we got to draw people to the game. Can we get fantasy out here? Can we get them sponsoring? Can we get more engagement that way? Yeah, 100%.
Would this be would this be a good tournament to test out? Like, I mean, I've talked about this for ages, just like the golf red zone channel, like why we can't pay for an on-demand service where I can follow around a group or a specific golfer. I get the logistical problems with it. It's very expensive to set something like that up to make it look like it does on CBS. Now, I think if people are paying for something on the internet, the types of people that would pay for this would not demand that sort of quality. And some of the feedback that I've heard from that is, well, CBS or Fox or whoever it is doesn't want to put a substandard product out there. They want to make it look very top of the line. But I feel like there's a real missed opportunity here that, if they can film a movie on an iPhone, we can figure out a way to set up some stationary cameras just to give us a live look into what's happening if we want to see it. That maybe this would be a decent test ground. Maybe the Franklin Templeton shootout is a great way to do it, where there's only like 24 guys on the course. Who knows? But it seems like these alternate events, and specifically the Barbasol, because they do seem receptive. Like, even talking to you is just, I know you're ingrained in the community there and you do stuff outside of golf, but it seems like they're willing to think outside the box a little bit, that this could just be a great test ground, and maybe that's a way to sell this tournament too. Yeah,
there's also a disassociation between the tour organizers and live TV. Two separate operations, and they don't really intertwine from what I understand.
That's so stupid though. I know I know that's how most giant places work, but it's so stupid.
But I think that even part of the money raised, the tour organizers actually give a chunk of it to television as part of the contract, because television has to. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but purse, paying television and paying for everything else is part of their fee. So they really. Live coverage, if Golf Channel gets 1 million viewers for the Barbasol, I'm not sure, and I could be wrong, I'm not sure that there's necessarily a money arrangement that incentivizes the tour organizers. So what they're worried about is, the lead sponsor, how much they're paying, and getting foot traffic there. And that's why the people that bang on Tony Romo being at Corrales, that's bullshit. Let's have, some Mackenzie Tour guy who's played well. I think that's fine. But the reason why they have Steph Curry, etc., is because they want to sell 1,000 more tickets. They want to sell 10 more private suites. That's why they are on the hook for the money. So I get it. If you can have, Brett Saberhagen.
Oh my God.
Bro, he was on a show this week on the Golf Channel.
I know. He also hasn't pitched since like 1989.
Multiple things wrong with that show. But that's why they do it. So I don't bang on it when they have. I mean, Tony Romo is the celebrity du jour everywhere, but it brings people out. A lot of these people also, the scoring thing, the scores, the guys typing in from where the person is hitting. When it's wrong, everyone's up in arms. These are all volunteers. They're not getting paid. Some of them have never even used an iPad before. The guys in, I think it was a web event in Puerto Rico or somewhere. Maybe it was the Bahamas. The guys doing the scoring that we see on the app, they didn't even know that the shot from the tee box counted as a shot, right? So you had all these people getting like 8 albatrosses in a row, and we're all losing our shit over it. But these are all volunteers, so it's a very, very basic budget for some of these tours. I mean, look at the Shell Houston Open; they lost Shell. Okay.
Well, would it be worth it for someone like, whether it be like DAZN or Golf TV, or even if NBC wanted to actually make a realistic investment in it, that we talk about TV dollars not translating, and maybe this isn't a TV thing. Maybe it's a web thing that you sell a subscription. Like, they're already selling the subscription service and people are buying it to watch basically nothing. You could charge far more, at least I think you can, if you showed a lot more. And that way you can kind of cover 2 birds with 1 stone. You could improve Shot Tracker along the same time, maybe get some funding from the PGA for that. Whatever it may be.
Don't ever assume, I mean, you're in the business now and the industry now, right? Don't ever assume that just because a company is big and flush with money, They know what they're doing.
No,
Right?
no, I'm completely on board
You know
with
what I mean?
that. But it feels like, but it feels like one of these startup places, one of these online properties would make better decisions with that money because they want to get into the market. That innovating would be their path in.
Innovating and ancillary competition will ultimately change the way we see things in live golf and online golf and with digital and everything. There's never been anyone to really, touch or butt up against the space. And it's happening. It's really happening now. And it's going to force some of these guys who've just rested on their laurels to really think and change. Otherwise, they're going to lose the 50% growth year on year in live coverage, or they're going to lose live coverage altogether. So I can tell you that without specifics, it's coming and it's going to change. And, people like you are going to get more lift because of it, and deservedly so, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so.
And
too.
Jeff, I love Jeff,
and Jeff too. Well, I mean, I think Jeff better represents the type of people that are going to be interested in golf, and even Cam. When I had Cam on the show as well, that they're the types of people that are going to throw their money down to make a few bets on golf, and that's going to keep them interested. It's more of a.
Is he okay? By the way, the horse guy, he looks.
Oh, Cam, yeah,
okay?
Cam's fine. Cam's just red all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
He's still on every single day. He does a 3-hour radio show on Fantasy Network. He's still on there with Gabe. So people, if they're missing Cam, they can go check out Cam. I'm going to try to have him on for something coming up here over the summer. He finds it very hard in this basement, though. It's a bit cooler, but in the middle of summer, he gets very sweaty. So it's tough. He's still kicking. I saw him like 3 weeks ago. But they're the types of guys that just want to get action in on it, and that's why they're watching it. So you have that base of people. I'm going to watch it because this is my job. I have to come on. I have to talk about it. I have to create content about it that if I'm not watching it, no one's going to watch me because I'm going to seem like a moron when I come on and try to talk about it. It would be so disingenuous. And that's sort of how I feel. And I don't know if it's a Golf Channel thing. I know that they're watching. I know that they're paying attention to it, but they're only talking about 5 guys ever. Maybe that's what people who are tuning into Golf Channel want to see. I just find it crazy that.
Well, I think they've done the metrics, and I saw a stat yesterday that millennials love Ricky Fowler and women love Jordan Spieth, and that's all they'll need to know to take that piece of paper and say, show more Jordan Spieth. Or show more Ricky Fowler.
But instead of having this 3-hour studio block where they're basically regurgitating the same thing at the top of every single hour to hit on the key stories of the day, why can't a show? I'm not saying my show or your show, anything like that, but if Faraday is so successful and that's sort of off-brand from what they do, and that's just an interview series, why not have some sort of course breakdown and pick show on Golf Channel every week? It seems crazy that they don't do it.
Pat, without getting in, I'm telling you, these networks are thinking about it. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow industry. There's a lot of decisions from multi different levels to happen, plus the money side, plus they have to calculate risk. I mean, these huge companies just operate. They don't operate like even in someone like you. You have to make 1 million decisions a day, and these people they just don't have to do that. But now they're kind of being forced to. And so I can tell you that, and I don't want to use Golf TV as an example, but it's coming.
Okay, see, I like this. And just remember to throw my name out there, too, when they're talking to the pick stuff. They want someone to provide a little bit of content. I am a content provider, so I would like to get into the mix for that stuff. Quickly, before we get out of here. Are stats ruining golf?
No, not at all. And if you think that's a political answer, it might be a little bit, because you don't want to get beat up in the community by saying stats are stupid, because they're not. And I've said this multiple times before. I think that the data side, much like it was for cryptocurrency, right? Well, we'll talk about that. But much like it is in that industry, I think the data side has created a new audience, has created new contributors to golf, has created new viewers of golf. It's created new economies, a new ecosystem, new businesses, spinoffs, etc. I think it is brilliant, and I think it is the backbone of the fantasy side of things, of the gambling side of things, that's ultimately lifting ratings. I think it's critical. I think it's only going to develop further. I think it brings on a bunch of people who may not be necessarily sporty, may not play golf or ever played golf, but can still find a fascination with it, because it touches on a a part of the Venn diagram that they like. I think it's critical. Now, is it predictive? Possibly some. Is it conclusively predictive? No. Do a lot of fights happen on Twitter that are meaningless? Yes. But it's all part of the fun of it, as long as it maintains fun. Because these people, I mean, the golfers, as you know, and I always talk about, there is so much, they're humans, right? And humans are dynamic. This isn't a team sport. And one person having a bad game can kind of be a little bit diluted and washed away without affecting the entire team. If these players have a bad sleep or a bad flight or bad food, or in a bad relationship, or just don't feel good, or their back hurts, Jason Day, right? It changes all of the research that you've done for the whole week in terms of predicting an outcome. So as long as people are understanding of that fact, I mean, if you went up to a player and said, "Look, I know I've calculated all these data. It pops in my model, and you pop in my model," and you said, "This is why I think you're going to win this week." He says, "Listen, man, I just had 5 injections in my back. I'm not going to win this week." Okay. And the opposite is true. I dare you to say to someone, "Oh, you're going to miss the cut because of what my outcomes have predicted." I mean, they'll be like, "Have a seat, son." I think that is the one bridging issue that I think the golf fantasy and data community and the players, and it will happen, will need to overcome in order to get any more resistance from the players, because the squawking and the yelling, these are all human beings and they're sensitive, right? When they read this stuff, whether you know it or not, they're looking it up and they read it. And when you say someone sucks, or someone's going to make the cut this week, or someone's lost their game, or they're terrible, if someone says it about your show, or maybe my show, or any show, right? They think we're impervious to that. It's not. It affects us. We think about it. We're like, fuck, why did that person say that? It sucks. And golfers are no different.
The best way to go about that is try to read as little about yourself as possible, because if someone's writing about you, it's generally not a good thing.
That's why I come on here and tell it directly to your face.
Exactly. You tell me to my face.
You're a dick.
Hey, listen, I there should be some sort of Twitter regulation. I have no problem with people talking shit on Twitter and everything like that. I just want real names and real faces. That's all I want. That should be the minimum entry to Twitter. You gotta, if you can be yourself. And I know the fun of Twitter is that most people aren't themselves, but that would solve a lot of these, like, people get so enraged. But
I think we're very fortunate in this industry.
Yeah,
I think the golf community is a lot different.
Yeah, as someone who deals in the football circles as well, yeah, golf is much better. The stuff that people get their backs up about in golf, especially the Twitter golf community, are very low stakes and are generally like pretty thoughtful arguments rather than just like very impulsive arguments, which I like. But the integration of stats, I think, onto live broadcasts could really go a long way. And maybe bridging that gap between the people who don't know anything or the people who don't care. And not to say that I don't want to pass it off like it is predictive, but just to show you, like, whether it's even strokes gained or scrambling, something like that. Like, now, at Fantasy National, if we can go like shot by shot, like, oh, he hit it to 275 yards on the fairway,
totally
to the right-hand side, have a drop down being like everyone in the field from the right side of the fairway has put it, their average proximity is this to the hole. If they hit it in the left rough, their average proximity is this. I think that would be a really cool way to mix in the data.
100%.
100%. That's the next step.
Yes, that's the next step. And I can don't get me wrong about data. What I'm saying is it's not 100% conclusive and predictive, but it certainly weeds out things that you probably shouldn't look at. 100%. That's accurate. And, I think that the integration of that, if you had a live screen and say this person is 20% of the rough to hit the green from this distance, that would be fantastic. Really good.
It would also, like, if someone was in the rough at one point being like, oh, no one has hit the green from this spot. Like, the average, like, if your second shot is from the rough on the left-hand side, most people are making bogey or double bogey from this spot. That if someone does put it on the green, you're like, holy shit, that was a great shot. Like, it would allow you a bigger appreciation for some of this stuff, too.
Well, now you're thinking intelligently, Pat, and you shouldn't do that.
And you could also mix in, like, if you brought on DraftKings as a partner to the PGA. Like, I was even thinking about this because I think that Fox, out of all the golf, like, where they have such a limited sample of golf, where it's just the U.S. Open, the U.S. Amateur, the U.S. Women's Open, I think it's Franklin Templeton Shootout. That's it. That in studio, like, I think they've done a good job. They bring in Gil Hanse, and he talks about the courses. They bring in Darren Clark, and he's more of a personality. That if you had someone on there talking about, like, hey, here are the people, like, if you did the, let's say, sponsorship with DraftKings kind of thing, be like, hey, this guy's like 38% owned for the US Open. Why is that? Let's follow him around. And even to have like their percentages or DraftKings scoring up on the board, something like that, you know, they do it for every other sport. Like they even put gambling lines at the bottom of like NBA games now on like regional networks. Like it just seems like such an easy step and a big money-making potential for these networks to sell off too. Because
Pat, live props.
Yeah. Like that the Tiger Phil thing was really stupid. I watched it, but that template will work once it's refined and actually being able to be incorporated properly into a broadcast.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, as I've said before, and this one's another freebie because we're coming up with a lot of gems today. But why isn't the green space, because, you know, golf courses are green, why isn't that green space being used like the NFL for advertising?
Oh,
everywhere.
Golf people would get so triggered by that. I wouldn't.
What about the, you know, the putting line to the hole, you know, what the Euro Tour has? The direction has that big line that comes out and says this is the, you know, the path of the putting needs to hit. You know that one I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like the old Tiger Vision and the old Tiger Woods games if you want to cheat.
Why is that not sponsored by like Cialis or something? If you know what I mean. That would be hilarious.
It'd be awesome.
Yes.
I don't
Cialis?
know. It seems like it feels like the resistance from the golf world comes in. Like I remember my friend Tim was very triggered that they were using the word tied instead of all square at the match play, which is really,
it's America, baby. Get used to it.
But it's so inconsequential. But it seems in golf, like people get really mad about this stuff. That if you tried to make it more like NASCAR in terms of sponsorships and advertising, that. I don't know if you would ever lose people because if people like golf, they're going to watch golf. So I think it's better just to beat people over the head with it, do it, and then deal with the ramifications afterwards. And then a year later, people are just used to it.
I think there's just 10% of any industry that's just going to squawk and going to make it difficult for the rest of us. But people have to realize that these broadcasts, the tournaments, why they have, you know, sponsorship exemptions, etc., why you're going to have ads on the green. Someone needs to make money. All right. The networks need to make money. The players want to get paid. If they want to endure the abuse they get and they want to endure the abuse on their bodies, etc., they need to get paid a certain amount. It's just the way things work. So there has to be some tolerance that you're not going to get everything you want. If you want live golf 24 hours a day, if you want to see a red zone on every shot, then you're going to have to tolerate, you know, seeing what? Buffalo Wild Wings approach shots. I don't know. Please don't do that.
Last three, very quickly. One,
yeah.
Is there anything we can do to solve the pace of play?
That's up to the players. I would say imposing penalties on pace of play. Yes.
I think that if we got a better pace of play or at least had some sort of shot clock, I do really think that would improve the experience of watching golf on TV.
I think yes. I do think that.
Because like even watching the match play, the match play coverage is so horrible. But even when everyone because you only end up with like one or two guys on the course, at the end it's unwatchable, especially if that person isn't Tiger because he has that allure, that draw. But even when the 64 guys were on the course, they still weren't showing anybody. They would show 4 guys out of 64, and there were still big names on the course at exactly the same time. Like I don't understand why I need to watch Jordan Spieth line up his putt for 10 minutes when they could have showed me 13 shots across the course. Well,
you now hear when the top 5 players in the world start talking about it, like Brooks is, he who has the gold makes the rules, right? If the players making the tour the money, if the players making the live coverage the money, if the players who are bringing in fans to the tournaments and making them money are squawking about it, they're going to listen. So
I would think too that the sponsors would start, bitching about this too, because I mean they if they have the logos on the shirts, they have the logos on the hat, the logos on the bags, that the more often that their guys get on TV, the better it is for them. And maybe it's just me being like a hyperactive sports watcher, but it's the same reason.
Follow the money. Follow the money. You're exactly right. But there's also, think about it, Pat, in the future of content, there are more ways for athletes, particularly golfers, to get on television and to get media than just being in the top 10 on Sunday. They need to think about that. There's more content like this, Pat, that they can get their brand out there to the audience that they want.
I mean, honest to God, like the fact that the cut sweat isn't actually a real thing, like on Golf Channel, that they really pay attention to, even on the live broadcast, that actually makes no sense. Because that's actually
Nelson's thing.
No, just in general, like when, because it seems like when they're on the broadcast, they seem to have.
Because I think Nelson's in jail.
Oh yeah, is Nelson in Twitter jail or real jail?
I don't know. I think he's in jail. I'm just giving him hell for some reason.
But like if you're watching like Faldo or whoever it is doing the Friday broadcast, like they seem to have no conception of like how the cut actually works to begin with, or what the actual number is going to be, or like the relative range of outcomes. But like the real drama, even if we just erase everything from gambling, from daily fantasy, DraftKings, doesn't matter. The drama in storytelling in sports is the stuff when the most is on the line. The most is not on the line for Johnny Vegas to be the 36-hole leader. You can show that too. The real drama is that guy who just came up from the web who's trying to make the cut. There's 10 guys trying to make the cut right now. We should be showing them. That's where, I mean, you want to talk about like the Sunday drama. Guys get nerves. Guys get nerves on a Friday if they need a birdie on the 18th or 17th to try to make the cut, or they're just trying to hold on 16, 17, 18 coming in. Especially if, you have the snake pit or the bear trap or whatever moniker they want to call it that day. That's where the real TV drama lies. That's a real storyline that just they never, ever actually do anything with.
They should call a 3-hole segment closing 3 on a course, the Mayo jar. That would be good.
The Mayo jar. That's so low quality. It would have to be for those who are finishing their round on the front 9 on a Friday. That'd be whole
Pat,
set
I'm not
7,
acting
8,
as
9.
your agent. I'm not acting as your agent, and I don't intend to be. And I don't know if you have an agent, but I'm dead serious. You need to at least feign that you eat mayo and get him as a sponsor, because I mean that's going to be a 1 comma money a year at least for you.
Listen, I'm all pro money. I will almost say anything on this show. Mayonnaise, delicious. Miracle Whip, even better. So I can fake this to some degree. I'll replace the wrestlers with Miracle Whip jars in the background.
There you go.
It'll just be ingrained sponsorships. What else do I have here? Should golf have an injury report? I say no. I think it's
no. I think
it's too
the
confusing.
soundbite that you were going to send that to me the other day. You sent me the wrong soundbite, by the way.
Did I?
I wanted the one where Jeff's saying, "You can't. No, you can't."
Oh,
when he had that little clip.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can get that one for you later.
I loved it because Jeff's right. I mean, like I said, I think that a lot of this reporting and stats and data that can be somewhat predictive but not entirely conclusive. Yeah, I mean, there's a certain level of privacy that players want, and they don't owe you. If they want to talk about it on Twitter, fine. If not, I think it's a fantasy problem, right? I think you need to I think if a guy decides to withdraw before the first tee, I think that DraftKings, you need to have a sub at different price ranges if that happens. If the guy withdraws after 8 holes, I mean, that just sucks. I'm sorry. I mean, you can't do anything about that.
It's no different than your running back picking a running back on DraftKings and he gets hurt on the first play of the game, and then he's out.
Right. And I think that with DraftKings, if you had a reserve player on hand at a certain price that fits your entire team and said, listen, if so-and-so withdraws, that I don't get screwed, because a lot of people are playing a ton of dough out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a fantasy problem. I don't think it's up to the players to do anything. I think Kevin Kisner is right on that. I think that ultimately, he probably needs to think about, the fantasy group, the 90% who are good, as a positive thing for the sport, and money and dollars and eyeballs and his paychecks. He said he worries about money. He's stashing all the money he can get because you never know what's going to happen. Well, guess who can bring it to you, man?
Yeah, once the actual gambling and daily fantasy get integrated in, that's just the hard part, is how do you integrate it in? I think making it as easy on the players as possible is the best way to do it. Have someone come in and surround the players. You don't even really need to educate them, to show them how beneficial this could be for them without them having to do anything else. They're already doing what we need them to do.
Let's just build integrated though, Pat. Everyone's benefiting from a money standpoint because of it, but there's been no acknowledgement of it in the content.
Sure, but it could be even like the money coming in could be 5-fold by this time 2 years from now, because I guess the final question we need to kind of end with, and I do have a marketability question for you too, but when will people realize that golf is the most fun sport to bet on?
I think that generally I think that they're realizing it now. I mean, I don't know about you, but the friends that you have that maybe have historically bet on golf, bet on football and other sports, when you introduce them to golf,
They love it.
I've got about 1,000% batting average on getting them converted and saying, "Oh, I love it."
Completely agree.
It's a completely agree. So I think it is. I think that once it's more legal in the U.S. and I think there's more marketing behind it, I think it's going to be crazy. And I think really it's going to impact the other sports too, highly. So I think the PGAs, and going back to your original question, and that's how good content works. You tie it all together. I think golf is in a very good spot.
I think that this gambling is going to push golf to the next level if they can figure out a way how to articulate how much better betting on golf is than every other sport. And I know for people that don't, if people are watching this show to the 1 hour and 20 minute mark, they probably already bet on golf. They understand it, but we even saw the popularity of DraftKings rise with golf. It's the one that's set up the most like football. If you can take the football template, where football was the most popular thing going in American sports right now, and figure out what they do successfully, and if your product can mimic that at all. And I think golf is actually set up in the best way to do that, because you make your bets, it's once a week, but instead of getting 3 hours of entertainment out of it, you get 4 days of entertainment out of it. And I think that ROI, that bang for your buck, is the real selling point to golf in terms of golf betting, golf wagering, golf daily fantasy, golf DraftKings. It doesn't matter what it is. And you get 4 separate sweats instead of one little mini sweat. That's the advantage. If we're talking about because gambling should be entertainment. I don't know anyone who's like a real professional gambler that like lives an okay life. Like some of them win money, but they're kind of disasters in real life. People like to do this for fun. I do it as entertainment. You do it as entertainment because I enjoy to do it. It enhances my viewing experience, and I like the sweat that goes along with it. If I can extend that out over 4 days, that makes golf infinitely more valuable than the other sports.
I think that people are watching sports, and golf in particularly, for what? They're watching it for the tension, the drama, the storylines, and I think that fantasy and gambling, for people who see it as entertainment, only amplifies those storylines and creates more of them. And it
creates the personal storyline. And since so many people, especially you talk about those younger viewers like myself, and younger than me, huge narcissists. We're all about ourselves, us millennials, that if we can create the storylines that are happening on the course and also storylines with ourselves, with our money and our bank accounts, it's only going to make me pay attention more.
By the way, we've been an hour 20 into this.
Yeah, we're an hour 22. I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time.
My car is like running outside.
That was not good. You don't have like a dog locked in the backseat, do you?
No, just my kids.
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah, just crack the window a bit. Good.
I'm kidding. Lexington Fayette County Police. I'm kidding.
Who are the most marketable stars on tour besides Tiger? Non-Tiger, non-Phil division, like new stars. Who's actually someone that you think brands should hook up with? I think that Rahm, Fleetwood. You probably need an American in there that actually helps. But like, who are these guys? Do you think?
I think that the most marketable players, if you saw that European tour content, Fleetwood, Eddie Pepperell, guys who really get it, who are good writers. Eddie's an extremely good writer on Twitter. I think they're very marketable on camera. I think guys like that, guys with that sort of humor and personality. I think Bryson is very favorable to brands. I just think that this moniker of scientist will ultimately typecast him forever and bear him with the cross that I'm not sure he can wear for 20 or 25 years.
I don't know if it's going to stick with him forever, but I think it's been advantageous for him to have this lane because there's no real other way that he'd be as known as he is right now. Despite having 5 wins worldwide, we see a lot of guys with a bunch of wins, but far more people in your general public are now more familiar with like Bryson than they are with like Justin Thomas.
Pat, your producer took the camera off me when I did that dramatic zoom in like this, because I was a little bit incredulous as to your comment.
Okay, why?
It'll stick with him forever, dude. He is forever known as the scientist.
Sure, but you can twist that around to make it a very positive thing in 5 years too, if you're still really good.
I don't know, man. I mean, I just think that it's not a bad thing. I just think for him, he's got to be like, I've got to pretend I'm a scientist forever. I mean, did you see Monfaraday? I mean, the poor guy. He's just, it's hard for him to convince everyone that maybe I'm a stuck guy in the lab mixing up chemicals.
Well, the one thing I don't understand about the Bridgestone commercial is that he's explaining the stuff to Tiger, and Tiger kind of seems like a dummy in it, but like Tiger's widely known as like the smartest guy who's played golf from like a golf IQ perspective, and the guy went to fucking Stanford. Like he's a very smart guy. 800
wins. And bro, it's Tiger fucking Woods. They made him Joey from Friends.
Yeah, like I could see if he was talking to like Bubba, I might get it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just the word. John Daly, maybe. Yes. Not that he's dumb, but he just doesn't, he doesn't care about stuff like that. But that's the problem. That's the problem. I'm going to talk like Jeff now. That's the problem. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Matt Wiley, follow him on Twitter at Wiley77 and subscribe to the Golflandia podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher Podcast, wherever you get podcasts. Tell everyone what's coming up because you're doing 2 shows for Masters Week, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm also not on Stitcher.
Why are you not on Stitcher?
Because I can't. Well, I'm on Podcast One,
okay.
And I don't think you can be on Stitcher with Podcast One. But
see, I did not realize.
Thank you for that plug. Next week, I will have Ray on for two shows. Ray Floyd Jr. As you know, his dad was a former Masters winner, and he has been around that course and the game and winners and the tour and players and everyone. I mean, he was a golfer himself. Right. He was a pretty good golfer. His brother was one of the top ranked amateurs in the country with Tiger. And so he brings his insight and history into what he knows a winning Masters player looks like going in. And then he does his 3-day analysis on the ground. I mean, he's the one who pegged Sergio in 2017 just because of what he looks for and what he knows that a champion of that, holy grail of tournaments is going to have to be doing the week of. So I'm going to have him on Monday to do that background history. And on Wednesday, we're going to have him on to talk about what he's seeing and whether or not the conclusions that he had on Monday are being validated.
And you can lean in too, because you're going to be on site to see these guys.
I'm going to be on site to see these guys. And if anyone's out there, a few people have DM'd me. If you want to say hello or I'd love to meet you, just at me on Twitter or DM at Golflandia and, whatever, we'll see. I'll pick you up again, some shirts. You're medium, American medium?
No, I'm American small, rest of the world medium.
All right. I will get that for you, my friend.
I really appreciate that. I really do appreciate you coming on and taking some time to talk to me.
Genuinely, and all of the satire and content and funny and laughs and silliness we've had, I genuinely, this. I genuinely respect you. And anything that I do in the future in this industry, it's certainly going to involve you.
Well,
and Jeff.
I very much appreciate that. I mean, people love Jeff. It's crazy how
he's
much
a wizard
people,
on camera. People don't. I mean,
he has like a 99% approval rating. There's like you always get your troll out there, but people love Jeff. People are like indifferent to me in certain ways, but people love Jeff.
Yeah, it's you guys are good. You guys just keep doing what you're doing. And we'll see where this industry takes us, if anywhere. If to that dumpster, that Nickelodeon dumpster of a studio of yours.
Perfect.
I'm just kidding.
All right. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on the Facebooks, the Twitters, and the Instagrams. Talked about all those giveaways, the 550, the 150, the 100, the 44, all the 20s, the Fantasy National yearly membership. To get the Fantasy National yearly membership, go retweet the pinned tweet at Fantasy National on Twitter right now, and then hit me with the hashtag in the reply. Hashtag FN Masters. And the other ones, if you share it around on Facebook or on Twitter, just do the retweet, no quote tweet, then reply to the tweet with hashtag, I think I said DK Masters. We'll go with DK Masters, whatever it is. Just send me the hashtag. I'll figure it out. Like the stuff on Instagram, share the stuff around, and give this episode a like. Leave your DraftKings handle. Tell me your favorite play on DraftKings for the Masters below $7,000. Which guy can actually win from down there? And then don't be afraid to leave the iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, no matter where it is, 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something nice about the show. You do all those things. You're in the draw that many times to win that big prize of the $555 ticket. I believe that's a $200,000 GPP. And Yeah, you might want to win that. That could, especially if you get the stuff for free. All the stuff takes like 10 seconds to do. So your ROI on that money, especially if you factor in if you win it, is just out of this world. It's the best hourly rate you're ever going to get in the world. So check that out and hit the description for the link to the PME Open Masters DraftKings contest. No rake, $15. Hope to see you in it. I'm Pat Mayo. Enjoy Masters Week. Got a ton of content coming for you. I'll see you next time.
That Mayo experience! Experience!